Good day, everyone. I am super excited to welcome Abhinav and Raghav Aggarwal from Fluid AI to join us today. And I worked with Abhinav and Raghav in another life where I headed digital transformation and advanced analytics at a bank. And we had an amazing working relationship. They have done amazing things in the space of AI. So I thought it fitting to have a conversation with them so that they can expose other Caribbean leaders to what's happening in the space and what is possible with AI. So welcome Abinav and Raghav. Please introduce yourself. And I'd love if you could tell us a little bit about your journey with Fluid, what inspired the focus on AI for businesses, and how did you end up serving international businesses and including in the Caribbean?
No, absolutely. Maybe I'll start with just how our journey began and then I'll hand over to Raghav. But it was been an interesting journey. Both of us were finance folks. So I was a CA, Raghav was a CFA, and we should just play around with tech. So we learned. We were kind of in college at the time, and I was both of us kind of came across coding, and we said, "Oh, this is super interesting," and we kind of started getting deeper into it. So we used to write fun things. We started building these platforms. And then but we didn't think too much of it. Right? We said, okay, there's good coding capability that we built, but I was a chartered accountant, he was a chartered financial analyst. So at the time, we didn't think too much of what we've learned. Then in 2012, and this is where it got really interesting, is we were in New York, and we were doing regular sightseeing, and Raghav reads this blog where he realized. So both of us were big followers of TechCrunch, and we came to know there's a TechCrunch Disrupt hackathon happening at the pier. So it was at Pier 51, and it was happening that day, and both of us were big TechCrunch fans. So we said, "Oh, this seems like a lot of fun to kind of do." And seems like a lot more fun than seeing Statue of Liberty for the third time. So we decided to ditch our sightseeing plans, and went there. Saw this massive hall, right? It was one of the world's biggest coding competitions back then. This massive hall, lots of code, a room full of coders, people with laptops, and we felt really at home over there. So we took part, and we kind of coded something very interesting in 24 hours. And at the end of it, to our surprise, we actually were one of the winners there. And that's what kind of gave us the confidence that, hey, there's a lot more coding capability. So we came back and then, built a team around it. And AI caught our fancy just because of the passion that, building something, at that time, like what generative AI is now neural feed forward neural networks was back in 2013. And that kind of caught our fancy. It's a machine that can learn on its own. So we said, oh, we must do this. This seems phenomenal. And that's where we kind of then started working more in the AI space. And then along the journey, Raghav and me both got into India's #1 and 2 MBA institutes, but we both dropped out because the business was really scaling fast. And, along that journey, then we ended up working with Warren Buffett. You got to meet him, have lunch with him. So we made his AI version. Yeah. And we also launched the world's first book written completely by an AI to become an international bestseller called Bridging the AI Gap. And that launched 1 month before ChatGPT came out. So space has been super interesting. In fact, recently Harvard just launched a case study on how we built the business. It's being taught at Harvard and the Indian School of Business.
But yeah, that's Howard University.
Yes,
that's fantastic. I definitely want to check out that case study.
Now I'll hand over to Raghav to tell us how things are going so far.
Yeah, it's been exciting. I think last 3 years or since 2022, right? Essentially, since ChatGPT hit, we took a big bet on generative AI. Right? Abhinav was talking about feed forward neural networks, NLP, right? That was older generation AI, we've seen those transformations happening. But if you look at the paradigm back then, it was a lot about what is the data that an organization has, so we can train on that data, and then what is the outputs we can give. But generative AI has completely changed the game, right? You don't need to bring much data in. These are pre-trained models which can be very powerful from the get-go. And that's sort of really helped us expand globally to economies which maybe not that data mature or not that data strong. Because through GenAI, we were able to sort of leapfrog and work with organizations from day one without them having to spend a lot of time on training, sort of massaging their data or a data strategy. So, the last couple of years, we've really expanded the number of companies we work with. Obviously, banks and financial institutions are big customers of ours. We have everyone from a Bank of America to a Royal Bank of Canada to a Barclays. Closer home in the Caribbean, we have four to five major banking financial institutions working with us, from First Citizens to NCB. But it's not just banks now. I think the opportunity that GenAI is bringing, and we're talking so much more to manufacturing, where we work with a Daimler Mercedes or a Bosch Power Tools, or healthcare, where we work with a Novo Nordisk. It's the democratization of AI, literally, right? Because earlier the use cases were a handful, because you would sort of say, this is where I have good data, this is where I can sort of work with it. But now everything from customer engagement to plant, a factory, an AI factory, to something on the financial processes side, all of those can be automated using agentic AI. So what we believe is the next 5 years, every company is definitely an AI company. It's just how much of AI they sort of ingest.
All right. Thank you for that. So you've started to jump into some of the examples. Let's go there. Give us some specific examples, please, of use cases that you've actually implemented in the Caribbean, in the financial services sector and any other sector where you've seen really amazing results.
Yeah. So I think obviously one of the first is the customer engagement side, right? Both on sales as well as on support. And in the Caribbean, what we have noticed is that typically, staffing in these kind of roles is a challenge. There's a lot of attrition. A lot of organizations are understaffed. They want more folks, but there's just not enough folks to sort of manage the calls. So out here, we believe that AI is, especially generative AI, is a game changer, both in terms of the customer support side, where it can be multi-channel, not just on text chat, but it can be on email, it can be on actual voice phone calls, as well as on sales, where the AI can not just have a conversation about the product, but can actually, craft personalized offers and then help the customer onboard themselves. So customer engagement side is an ocean in itself. It's fairly easy to get started. I think a lot of organizations, when they're looking for that hero use case, which is like, where do we start this journey? We definitely believe that the customer engagement side is a really powerful place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen that across, whether it's NCB, First Citizens, JMMB, they're all leveraging it, in really amazing ways. Even Belize Bank, for example. And the other, area that we found super interesting is an internal GPT for the organization. So the challenge that we've seen is obviously, you want to automate a lot of processes internally, and you also have a lot of documentation systems internally. Can you have an agentic AI system that's, getting you the right answers when you need, but not just from, text sources or documents, but also from structured sources like tables, APIs. So kind of almost looking at all your systems and being able to interact with them intelligently. So like a smart assistant sitting with the org, that's been another one we've seen a lot of orgs, especially in the Caribbean. We've deployed quite a few of those that have been really powerful as well. I think, there's another big category that's manufacturing. So, smart manufacturing. So within the plants, can you have an AI that helps customers essentially, reduce within the shop floor, usually when a machine goes down or info is needed, there's a lot of challenge in terms of how to fix this machine, a lot of technical expertise needed. But having an assisted AI kind of guide you that knows everything about the machine uh, really helps accelerate that manufacturing process. So that's another big one. Um, Other interesting ones, I think one is definitely KYC onboarding. We've seen become really powerful because you end up, and that wave came more, I think, recently. Like Raghav mentioned, the customer support and the customer sales engagement works across, all channels, right? Email, text, live chat, phone call, web, voice as well. We found KYC ever since these models became multimodal, right? So that they can interact with images, documents. The ability to process KYC documents has become really another super use case.
Okay, interesting. I want to double click a little bit on the customer experience use cases. What does that look like? Walk me through a customer engagement interaction that you've deployed in the region. And then share with us what the impact has been for the organization, the benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest benefit, especially on the customer side, we've seen when these solutions have got deployed is that, you know, the response times significantly crash, right? So there have been times where a customer would get a response in anywhere from 24 to 48 hours.
Are they calling?
No, so this is either, yes, they're calling, they're emailing, they're live chatting. So the first one was when I was talking about was email. So when they would email, they would get a response in 24 to 48 hours, and that's been crashed down to like 15 minutes flat for all customers. And this is happening, for orgs whose number of incoming emails has doubled or tripled in volume. Their SLA, which is okay, let's respond within 24 hours, has gone from like 50% to 100%. So imagine you've doubled volumes, but you've moved your SLA all the way to 100%. You're responding within 15 minutes, and you're responding or closing a much higher ratio of tickets much faster. So I think it's kind of a triple win because customers are getting a better, faster experience, and at the same time they're saving tremendous cost on the outsourcing cost that they're spending on a lot of resources and training them to kind of handle the new loads that are coming in. And the same kind of impact and experience is being seen on live chat and phone call as well, right? Calls that would take probably 5, 10, 15-minute wait queues now shrink down to 5 to 10-second wait queues because you call, the AI picks up, it scales automatically, right? So you have an incident where it's suddenly moving from 100 calls every 20 minutes to 1,000 calls, and you don't the AI will scale automatically to handle the situation. Similarly for chat. um, so I think that's it's been a tremendous ROI, both from the savings uh, in terms of how much they're spending on these call centers and customer care centers, and at the same time the beauty of the efficiency that customers getting a better, faster, cleaner experience essentially.
And the
That's
same,
actually wonderful. Go ahead, Raghav.
no, I was just saying the same translates on the sales side, right? Previously, like if sales was a 9 to 5 kind of operation, you may need to visit a physical sort of location to get your work done. The AI agents are enabling that to be 24/7, so you're there when the customer wants to interact, not forcing them to do only in business hours, and you're really able to sort of personalize your offerings in terms of helping the customer select the right offering, and then you're seeing these massive numbers in terms of conversions and sales that these AI bots are able to take.
Absolutely. And this is actually one of my favorite use cases. I just want to add that the employee experience actually also gets enhanced, which for some people is counterintuitive. But when the call center agents are overburdened with calls and feel like they're missing their SLAs. And by the time they connect with the customer is irate, it actually has an impact on customer experience. When you're able to resolve quite a few of these issues, leveraging AI, and then that frees them up to have more non-testy conversations with the client and even opens the door for cross-selling, right? I think we've seen that.
Absolutely. No, I think no, that's a great point there. That once you're giving the customer an amazing experience, the job of the customer care agent kind of it evolves, because it's, as opposed to hearing from a customer that I've been waiting in line for 15 minutes to resolve this issue. Now, whenever the AI hands over to the customer care agent, they're having a amazing conversation, and then they have the opportunity, like you said, to upsell, to really build a relationship, and handle the more complex stuff, essentially.
Yeah. I want to start with email and walking persons and leaders through how they would get that set up. Because one of the things that I see a lot of companies do, they set up email inboxes to handle customer queries and so forth. And that's the way of getting digital. But it quickly falls down because there is not a process in the back end to support handling those emails. So let's say a client wants to set that up. They don't have a super mature data architecture or anything like that. Walk us through the process that Fluid AI takes to get them from these mailboxes that where tons of emails are in Never Never Land and lots of upset customers to the point where they are being addressed within minutes of the customer sending an email. What's the learning process? What does the client need to do? Take us through that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The good thing with generative AI as an approach has been that setup pain and effort, right? You're bringing in a new solution, that's considerably been squashed down, right? So in the current approach, you essentially give it access to so there are two parts to it. One is setting up the integration and the connectivities, like how does this AI sit within all my agents and work on this box together. And the second part is how do I make this AI intelligent, right? As intelligent as my agents to know everything. So when it's about setting up the agent AI or training it, it's literally, most banks, they typically give their customer care employees kind of like a starter kit, like set of Word documents or PDFs, kind of outlining the products, the different FAQs, different resolution approaches, SOPs, right? So the AI just takes those in, you just upload them as is. You don't need to modify them, so whatever formatting style, the AI can read it. The other is your website, right? So the AI kind of scans your website and pulls that in as well. And that's about it. So, you're automatically set up with an AI system that knows everything about you in just a couple of hours. The other thing, if you want to do, is kind of hook it up with different APIs that you would have within the bank. So, let's say you want the AI to be able to also do things like a password reset or look up a transaction for the customer or do a card block. Then you would kind of connect it to those systems via APIs. So once you have that, then the AI is kind of intelligent. So it knows I can do these things. I have this knowledge. Then the second part, right, hooking it up with the inbox, that's fairly straightforward, right? It's kind of like how you'd set up Outlook. You just give it your, you feed the credentials to the AI. It connects to it like a regular human does. It's using a standard IMAP. And you're kind of done then, because what the AI will do is, the mail comes in, it'll read it. It'll say, okay, based on my knowledge and systems that I have access to, it'll try and solve it. If it solves it, it'll just respond to the customer and archive the email. And if it can't respond, it just puts it in a folder for all the agents to process. and all you need to tell your agent teams is now just stick into this folder. Anytime something the AI can't handle will come in this folder, and you can go ahead and pick it up as and when needed. So it's actually quite a straightforward experience. When you go from adding this AI member as another just team member within the team.
A super efficient member who can do over 80, 85, 90%. Yeah.
So there are times where there needs to be human in the loop. Talk to me about how you work with the companies to decide which emails they're comfortable with the AI just going ahead and responding to without any human in the loop versus those that require an eye before sending out, and then those that really require agent involvement because they're more complex.
So typically the way the human in the loop is introduced is the AI agents. There's one final checker agent, AI agent at the end. So she's kind of checking all the final outputs and then making that decision of, okay, is this good to go to the customer, or would I want a human to get involved in the loop? And she can kind of be tuned or instructed to be very, very strict initially, like, okay, only if they're 100% sure of the response and it looks great and it's perfect, only then send it. Otherwise, send it to the human. And she can be loosened up a bit as well. So largely what we've seen with organizations is they've kind of seen their current standard, and all orgs are kind of at very different standards in terms of the quality of emails that are going out. So sometimes where the quality is quite poor, they kind of keep the checker agent very loose because she's like, okay, it's going to be better anyways than what we're currently sending out. And in orgs where the quality is very high, then they keep the check or the balancer agent quite strict so that the quality always remains on top.
Yeah, and just to add to that, you can literally, we have this AI evolution framework as well, right? So you can have the AI initially assist human agents as well. So let's say an email comes in, they can put that email into the AI, and the AI drafts an answer, and then they can say yes. They can just copy paste if it's a good answer, or if they want to tweak it. So that's another way organizations sort of get very comfortable with this process of knowing that the AI is going to do a good job or escalate to them. That's sort of an evolutionary framework wherein you initially maybe hand it over to a human agent using the AI to answer the email, and then move to the automation where the AI itself is answering.
Okay. Awesome. My next question is around the voice, and within the context of the various languages that we have in the Caribbean and on the African continent, it would be a similar thing. What's the process of training the AI to ensure it can understand the various local languages and respond?
So, in fact, that's really interesting. We currently support over 150 languages on the AI already out of the box. And so what that gives you the opportunity as users of AI is to literally put, any kind of process and not be worried that there's a user out there who may be speaking a language that the AI cannot respond in. India itself, is a, in a single country, we have over 40 languages, and glad to say that AI is now supporting almost 20, 25 of them very strongly. And among the global languages, Spanish, German, Portuguese, all of those are already supported out there.
Including things like Jamaican Patois.
Yeah.
So that's also covered.
I love it. Abinav, you're really a Jamaican, because most foreigners will say patois, but it's patois.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah.
So the opportunity is quite amazing when it comes to voice, because previously when we were in the chatbot era, it was always about deflection, right? The AI can handle text, so maybe on the phone call you would say you can also reach us on chat, but it's very difficult to change human behavior. It's more efficient and effective, but people will be like, oh, I have a number, let me just call. But through the power of voice and having it across so many languages, you now have the opportunity to not deflect, but just meet the customer on their channel of choice, which is that phone call. So uh, we believe voice really changes the game. It's cost effective, it's highly scalable, and it creates a good sort of customer positivity when the phone call is picked up within 2 rings and the answer is done within 2 minutes, versus having to be on long holds and dealing with IVRs and punching buttons. And
Yeah, not fun. All right, I'm going to take us a little bit back. You were talking about KYC emerging as one of the use cases across the region. We have been rolling out data protection legislation. Many business leaders, their primary worry is around the data privacy, security, confidentiality. Does this put me at risk of non-compliance? I'd love for you to take us through how Fluid handles data privacy and being in alignment with local and global data protection and privacy regs.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think the biggest fear when deploying a lot of these AI solutions is, right, who am I and where am I sending my data to, right? And fairly so. I think it is a challenge to also, one is you're confident with where your data is going, but then also convincing compliance, the regulator. That's a whole nother story, as most of you know, complicated process. Um, so the way we've seen a lot of organizations kind of circumvent that is you just end up deploying the solution in their premise. So if they're using a private cloud or if they just full bare metal in their own premises, just put the entire solution there. um, that initially is a little more expensive to get going and takes a little more effort, but from a compliance and regulatory standpoint, that second part becomes a breeze because the data is in-house, it's walled off, it's not moving anywhere. Everything, the models, the AI is coming to the data, so you're literally bringing the well to the horse, and that satisfies a lot of heads. So I think that's one approach, and that's been usually successful. The other has been either doing a hybrid, which is partly on-prem, partly on cloud, so kind of using the best of both worlds. And we've had even organizations go complete on cloud as well. I think with the on cloud, I think the key security parameters that you need to ensure is that the language model that you're using is an enterprise language model, so it's or it's if it's an open source, it's kind of privately deployed so that it's not moving outside of the provider you're working with. um, and I think also just following like a no retention, no logging policy. So even if the data is touching, it kind of does the AI processing on the cloud and then sends the response back to the premise or the private system. So yeah, it's like fleetingly touching the online world and then getting itself deleted in real time. That kind of helps bring down costs, makes it a lot more scalable quickly. So those have been the two ways we've seen most of these orgs kind of tackle or ensure security is top of mind and still kind of achieve the bang for their buck.
Okay. And you touched a little bit on it, but if you could just double click a little bit more on this worry about my data is being used to train the large language models. How do you architect around that today?
yeah, so there are actually various safeguards on this, and depending on the level of control or comfort you have, you can actually scale this up or down. The best methodology where you have 100% confidence is to host the large language model yourself. So today, with the plethora of open source LLMs, whether it be a Llama, whether it be a DeepSeek, whichever LLM, or Mistral, whichever LLM you're comfortable with, hosted on your infrastructure. And when I mean your infrastructure, it doesn't need to be necessarily on premise, but it can even be in your private cloud, or in an environment where you are controlling the entire LLM so that it's air gapped. So even if there is any training happening, it's not happening of some global model. It's your model that's hosted by you, that's controlled by you, that's sort of learning. So That is the most secure, confident way of doing it. The second way of doing it is actually working with an enterprise GenAI LLM provider on a token basis, and then having the contracting wherein you say, hey, like Abhinav was mentioning, no retention, no training. So literally, I'm sending you the data as a query for you to respond, and after that, there's no training. So there you would then have a bunch of legal agreements. Most of the enterprise LLM providers have fairly strong agreements stating that, and then you have an understanding that your data remains only for the query answering, not for a training purposes. So those are largely the two approaches. Both work. In fact, different use cases may sometimes demand you to go for approach one or two. So they can even be used in tandem or as a hybrid.
Awesome. For the clients that are working directly with Fluid AI, how does that work? How do those arrangements get set up? They establish a partnership with you, and then you establish a partnership with the LLM providers?
Yes. So in those kind of scenarios, what we would do is we already have agreements with all the major LLM providers. Again, customers, 50% of our customers actually choose to go with an LLM hosted in their environment. So then we help set that up for them. We decide which LLMs, along with our customers, which LLMs would be the right customer, which LLM would be the right one for the customer. The second scenario, if you do go with a cloud provider, we already have these kind of agreements in place. So and that passes through to our customers' data. So we decide, okay, we're going with cloud provider A, B, or C, and then we can go ahead and then just hook it up. So the hard work's already done for our customers.
Awesome. So Fluid AI has a great framework for helping leaders think about how to prioritize and evaluate their first use case for deployment. I would love if you could walk us through that.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge when you kind of think about your first use case is actually, it comes almost a step before, which is figuring out which is going to be your first use case. So ironically, you think the challenge will be in getting that use case live, figuring out how to deploy it, getting the right tech in place. But most people, when they're deploying GenAI today, they struggle with the challenge of, oh my God, I could do this, I could do that, I could, there's like 50 things that the organization's saying they can do, and vendors are pushing them in different directions. So they're left with so many options that they almost hit decision paralysis of where do I kick this off, right? And how do I kick this off? So I think there's a very interesting framework that we adopt for just figuring out or solving that part of the problem. And the way you do it is you kind of, you take a plain sheet of paper and you just do a, one vertical line, one horizontal line, right? So that's your axes. Kind of like remind you of the school days, right, in math class. And so on the y-axis, you'll put something like business value, right? And that could be in terms of cost savings, revenue gain, or exponential improvements, depending on where your priorities lie. Right? So that's business value, low to high. And then on the x-axis, you will do a couple of things. You will do technical complexity and business complexity. So kind of merged into one line, right? And they typically mean like technical complexity and business complexity are essentially, so technical complexity is like, can the models or the technology of today actually solve the problem you're looking at, right? So, for example, KYC as a use case would probably have not done well a year ago because the models weren't good at understanding image and video data, right? And a lot of KYC is around, okay, here's my driver's license, right? This is my salary certificate. Now figure things out from this image. So, or, match these two people. I think a lot of, so that's where, that use case was low technical feasibility, but very high on the business ROI. There's a lot of cost saving and better customer experience for having a faster KYC process. So that switched. When you talk about business feasibility, right, how do you calculate business feasibility? It's largely about figuring out how much of your processes and systems need to change. How much do people need to change the way they behave? And if the answer is, oh my God, people need to change a lot of what they're doing, then your business feasibility is very low. And if they don't need to change a thing, then the business feasibility is very high. So an example of this would be the email one that I gave you. So business feasibility is high because the team that's working on the inbox continues working the way they did before, right? They all still use Outlook. They'll all still go in, or whichever email platform they use, they all still go into the platform. It's just that a few mails are like, or a big chunk of those mails are pre-answered or auto-answered, right? So very easy. But if you told those same folks that, hey, now you're going to use this completely new system to handle email, right? We're introducing fancy System X, and now everyone has to log into this new system, and the way the boxes arrange is completely different, and there's a new UI to the thing, and they are being trained on it. That's when the business feasibility starts to fall. That's when you will get like a resistance to change. People might shift back to the old way. Some people will be like, oh, system's not working, so I start using the box. And, you're kind of constantly playing that cat and mouse game of trying to push people to use it, and they're resisting. So I think if you get those two right and you plot them, then whatever turns up on the top right quadrant, right?
High value, low complexity.
Yeah, high value, high feasibility, technically and business wise. That's your goal right there, and then you start from the top right and move all the way to the bottom.
Yes, very simple. Now, talk to us about how you think about risk. There's this Harvard professor that talks about low chance of errors and high chance of errors. The example he gave was in a clinical space where you are diagnosing cancer, as an example. You don't want to get that wrong because getting it wrong has significant implications, versus if you send an email and perhaps a couple of things are wrong, but even when the agents were doing it, they would make those mistakes. Different types of implications of the errors. How do you think about risk when you work with your clients to select that initial use case?
Yeah, so I think very well put, right? When you look at risk, you don't want to start off with a high risk use case, right? Something which, if it gets it wrong, can put you, your business, your customers into a significantly complicated situation. But even then, you would like it to be high value. So high value doesn't mean it's high risk. It can be sometimes be low risk as well, right? So one example of that was for one of our customers. They have a fairly large product mix. They have many products, and they wanted to guide customers on which is the right product for them. And a lot of people used to come to their website. It was confusing. There were over 100 products. So what they simply did was they launched a AI, an agentic AI bot. It understood their website, their product mix well. We gave it some guidance, and it started having conversations with folks about what was the right product for them, sort of personalizing it. And it was a high value one. It upped their sales 25% from the website in the first 3 months of launch. But it's not high risk, right? Because if you look at what was happening before this, people were just scrolling the website randomly, right? They were just going, oh, this page, that page. A lot of people would bounce off, etc. So there are these happy coincidences in your business where high value and low risk sort of meet up. And a lot of people think everything high value is high risk, but it's not necessary. And it's also about building a governance framework. I think a lot of times when folks are implementing AI, they don't know what are their key sort of monitorables, right? You're implementing AI to transform a process, but do you know the current, success rate of that process on a human scale, right? So if that success on a human scale is anyway 60, 70%, and you're confident that your AI can do 80%, you don't need to wait for the AI to be 100% because it's already beating your current systems. Sometimes people get in this fallacy, I will only launch the system when it's 100% accurate, they forget that the human system or the current process is 70% accurate. So that's another, variable to see where is your current process lie at, where does the AI process sort of bring it to, what's that differential, and what do you sort of aim to finally get it to?
Yeah, yeah. I think Rao brought up a great point, right? I think even we've seen this, especially in customer-facing implementations. I think when it's a machine doing it, it's our psyche, and I think it's natural that everyone gets into the psyche that it needs to be perfect because it's talking to customers, right? And then when they see their own data of what their agents are sending out, they're kind of shocked in terms of, for the AI, it's like this. The standard is, like Raghav said, 100% accuracy, and their own agents will be at like 60-70% quality,
or maybe not even responding to half.
Half the emails aren't going through. So I think it's an interesting dichotomy that the minute it's a machine, our expectations of what it should be able to do go up massive.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. That point has been raised with the driverless cars as well. Humans definitely cause more accidents, and it's still hard to accept just from that psyche when the machine causes an accident. So it takes everyone a while to get there. I'm gonna jump to asking you about agents because you've used the term quite a bit in the conversation, and it's the buzz of 2025. Please break down for us what are AI agents? What is all of this about?
Yeah, I think so. The word agent actually comes from it's derived from the word agency, right? And agency in itself means the autonomy to make a decision, but keeping a specific goal in mind. So till now, the previous generation of all these models was very, like, I ask you something, like I give it a prompt, it gives me a response back, and then I ask the next prompt, it gives me the next kind of response back, and that's kind of where it used to be, right? That was what ChatGPT was all about. And then they said, okay, if we can give these models two things, right? One is the ability to reason and think through what they're answering, and then give them as access to a series of tools, right? So tools could be, okay, okay, I have access to read this database, and get data from it. I have access to these APIs. So if you give me a calendar scheduling API, then I can actually schedule something in a calendar. You give me email API, I can read email. You give me core banking, that I can do something, block your card. So giving them the ability to do actions, or give them access to those tools that allow them to do action. So when you start putting, you gave the model ability to think, you gave it access to these tools, and you said, here's the goal, right? Like for customer support, it'll be like, solve this customer's problem. It will then be this one encapsulated system or agent that's talking to the customer, figuring out their problem, calling the relevant systems and tools at the back, and not stopping till the problem is solved, but also having the intelligence to say, hey, I might need to send this over to a human, and triggering that activity as well. So that's why agents are kind of so exciting, and why everyone's talking about them, because you've essentially taken what humans were capable of, and recreated that in a virtual world.
Right. So what percentage of the deployments that you're doing today have an agentic core?
Oh, I think that right now about like 100%.
Yeah.
So I think
100%.
Yeah, I think all deployments very quickly once we came out with agents, early 2024. So for us, it's actually been a while, and I know now the industry and the excitement's really coming through.
Yes.
But yeah, I think almost everything that we do has an agentic backend.
Okay. What does that look like with the knowledge-based use case, which I love? We worked on one of those where instead of employees having to go to all different databases to find knowledge, it's all in one place, and they have their own internal Wikipedia of sorts. What does Agentic enable in that scenario?
Yeah, I think Agentic in that scenario enables it to become a lot more intelligent and accurate, essentially, right? So the previous generation would kind of go through the documentation and try and come up or whip up an answer. But in the Agentic world, it's almost like a team of AIs that are working to solve the requests that you've given it. So they'll be able to go through a lot more documents. So there'll be like one agent that's just getting all the documents, sifting through them and saying, oh, these ones are not relevant, use these. There'll be another agent that will reason through the answer and say, okay, this is what the information the systems are saying. This is what I'm trying to search for, or what the users asked me to search for, and kind of come up with an answer. And I might do multiple requests at the back saying, oh, okay, this answer is not that great. What if I kind of like a human would, like, oh, okay, they've asked for credit card block for MasterCard platinum card, right? But what if I searched it differently, like card deactivation? Am I getting better answers? So all of those multiple step reasonings and findings, the agent does and gives it to you. So it just becomes a much more accurate, more nuanced, better researched answer, essentially, from the traditional one.
Yeah, and just to add to that, right? So in the old knowledge-based world, you would typically be dealing with unstructured information, right? Which would be PDFs, PowerPoints, etc. But now with agents, you can literally have one agent connected to that unstructured world, which is maybe your, let's say it's your Google Drive or it's your SharePoint, whatever. And another agent may be connected to a structured world, which is a Snowflake database or an SQL data series, right? So you can literally ask queries which can pull from both these worlds, right? You can say, I want information on machine X, on how to restart it. And I also want to know the last 3 times it broke down. So you're sort of pulling together from the structured world, unstructured world, you're getting, okay, what is the process to do something? From the structured world, you're getting, okay, and this is the last 3 times this machine is broken down. So the ability to combine both those worlds becomes really powerful with agentic frameworks, and they can sort of interplay off of each other. Whereas in the old knowledge-based scenario, you would typically get information from a single source.
Love that. All right, AI, super powerful technology, and generative AI has allowed us to do some amazing things, particularly in the Caribbean, where we aren't as mature from a data standpoint. One of the things I've learned, though, is that the tech is not everything. There are many times where the tech is amazing, but the overall implementation still fails. I want you to talk about, from your experience, what are the different factors you've seen in the successful organizations outside of tech which cause the implementations to be successful?
Yeah, I think, from my end, I think there would be two key factors. One would be a clear sort of understanding of the goal. A lot of times people get into, AI, Gen AI, Agentic AI from a shiny ball perspective, right? Oh, we need to do something. This is coming now. And the goals can get a little hazy, right? The intentions can be different for different people. But great organizations are already thinking of the end state, right? They're saying 1 year down the line, if we implement agentic AI, this is what should happen, right? Maybe our costs go down 20%, our revenues rise 30%, what have you, right? And it may not happen exactly that way because nothing is as smooth as a straight line, but at least the goal parameters are outset, right? So you're not sort of constantly sort of saying shifting goalposts or setting unrealistic kind of expectations. So I think that really helps. Second is a culture which is you looks at AI as an asset, as a muscle that needs to be developed. I think a lot of folks go in, a lot of organizations which really make it successful, realize that AI is not a fad or oh, we can just pick up a few use cases. It's essentially transformation. But that doesn't mean that that transformation needs to be big bang on day one, right? It can happen over a series of steps. You can increase the complexity. Like, day one in the gym, you maybe just lift a smaller weight and then you increase it. So when organizations look at AI as that asset, as that muscle they're developing, I think it's a very different outlook. And even the failures, because in your AI implementation, you're going to have 1, 2 use cases which don't work out, where the technology maybe is not yet ready, or where maybe there's a dependency on external forces which doesn't allow you. But you learn from that when you look at AI as an asset, rather than saying, we're trying a bunch of use cases and, that's it. So I think those two things are very, very important.
Awesome. All right. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I think that the business leaders that have an opportunity to listen will learn a lot. There is still a lot of overwhelm in the space, is what I gather around where to start. There is fear in the space as well, in terms of data privacy, AI going rogue. And in closing, I'd love if each of you could share a final piece of advice to business leaders who are learning about AI and making a decision about how to move forward.
Yeah, I think like Raghav said, right? Uh, I think my advice would be it's just to get your hands dirty and just try a few things. Because if you don't, you don't get started, you can kind of keep overthinking the problem and the possible solutions. But a lot of the learning comes by just trying out a few things. And once you do that, then what you can learn is phenomenal. I think go out there, learn, go a little risk free, and just try a bunch of things. And that'll teach you a lot.
So I think I have a more specific learning. I think, especially for leaders in the Caribbean, I think a lot of times in the past, folks have said that uh, you need data maturity, you need technology maturity, and sometimes Caribbean organizations feel a little like, we're sort of getting there, but we could be better at it. AI is this opportunity to leapfrog. Uh, it's not, with the right use cases and the right sort of mentality, you could almost look at, even if you're not that tech mature right now, but if you have a strategy, a framework, you could leapfrog companies which are more mature. You could leapfrog competition which is more stronger right now, because it could essentially it could reimagine your business, right? It could reimagine certain processes, reimagine the way you work. So look at it as that opportunity, rather than as something that, we are not ready for it or something like that. Because just like certain nations didn't need to go from a lot of developing world never had landlines, right? We straight away went to mobile phones, which was a much better solution. I think
Yes.
AI, especially the Gen AI, Agentic AI, there's a chance to sort of just leapfrog a couple of generations.
That's a fantastic example, Raghav, and I'm glad you mentioned it. And that is actually something that pretty much everyone in the Caribbean would be able to relate to. So I thank you for sharing that. And it's a wonderful note to end on. Abinav, Raghav, thank you so much. You have been amazing partners, and I hope that Caribbean business leaders are inspired by this conversation. We'll take action and get ready to leapfrog.
Awesome. Thank you,
Thank
Nadeen.
you. It was always, I think your questions were phenomenal. It was a lot of fun. And I think you're doing some amazing work. So we keep looking forward to what all you keep bringing to the table and all the innovation you keep bringing.
Yes, same here, Nadine. It was wonderful talking today and always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, guys. Take
See
care.
you. Bye.
Bye.